History and the present day. German crimes, Russian lobbyists, secret services, and a professor who, instead of defending historical truth, openly represented Berlin's interests. Professor Krzysztof Ruchniewicz has resigned from his position as head of the Pilecki Institute, although he should never have been there in the first place. A man who was supposed to represent Poland in talks on reparations not only questioned their validity, but demanded that Poland settle accounts with Germany. If someone who heads an important public institution undermines a sense of claims resulting from unprecedented destruction and crimes committed against Poles, then we are dealing with a conflict with the national interest. He should defend the Polish raison d'etat, and not a version of it that is convenient for Berlin. It is enough to recall what the head of the Pilecki Institute was saying about reparations until recently. There are no longer any legal or political means that Poland could use in the matter of reparations. Politicians exploit the issue of reparations because it still arouses emotions in Polish society. Germans do not understand what Poles mean by reparations. In the context of reparations, the discussions are closed. For a long time, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk did not mind that such a man was at the head of an important state institution. But darker clouds began to gather over Professor Ruchniewicz, and it was no longer just about his scandalous statements, but also about mismanagement.
Professor Ruchniewicz, jako szef Instytutu Pileckiego.
As head of the Pilecki Institute, Professor Ruchniewicz often spoke as if he represented interests other than those of Poland in the field of historical policy. Let us recall, for example, his high-profile position on reparations, which he criticized. Today we hear and read that he is a figure who not only had ties to Germany, but also indirectly to some circles in St. Petersburg and Moscow. Why Donald Tusk put such a prominent person at the head of such an institution, considering Polish historical policy, is something only he can know. From the point of view of national interest, this ends very badly. Finally, in August last year, Professor Ruchniewicz was dismissed from his position of director of the Pilecki Institute. Today, Wirtualna Polska has written about the background to this decision. In the background is the intervention of counterintelligence, which became suspicious of the historian quite late. Among other things, he expressed his dislike of the Lemkin Center, which documents Russian crimes, but worse still, Professor Ruchniewicz's dangerous connections with Germans and indirectly with the Russians came to light. His relationship with Urs Unkauf was also considered disturbing. He is a German lobbyist who sympathizes with the Russian Wagner Group, a private military company waging cyber warfare against the Western world and expanding Russia's influence in Africa and the Middle East. The head of the Pilecki Institute must first and foremost understand who Cavalry Captain Pilecki was, must identify with him to some extent, and must not look at Germany through rose-coloured glasses, let alone look furtively at Russia. These two countries contributed to the tragic events during and after World War II, and both countries refused to acknowledge their responsibility for our pain, our suffering, our human losses, and, of course, our economic losses. The lobbyist mentioned by Wirtualna Polska was supposed to legitimize the criminal activities of the Kremlin-linked Wagner Group and worked closely with Professor Ruchniewicz. Today, it also turns out that there are very serious suspicions that he was acting under Russian influence, that he was very close to people from the Wagner Group, that he did not represent Polish interests in Belarus, Russia and Ukraine in a dignified and appropriate manner. In these matters, he kept his distance from the position of the Polish state and, it must be said bluntly, represented views close to the Russian position. All this needs to be explained. Does Polish counterintelligence exist? How could Polish counterintelligence allow such a man to hold such an important position in the Polish state? The professor ended his work in an atmosphere of scandal, but it is not yet known how much damage the mission entrusted to him by Donald Tusk has caused Poland. Donald Tusk is politically responsible for this nomination, and it is he who should explain whether the priority was to strengthen Polish historical claims or to extinguish them. When it comes to national memory, there is no room for ambiguity. Either we stand on the side of Polish losses and Polish war claims, or we weaken them with our own narrative, which is unfortunately what Ruchniewicz is doing with full premeditation, and he should be held accountable for this. This is an urgent task for the state services. Questions are also multiplying about the political responsibility of the leader of the December 13th coalition.